This is Left Voices for Wednesday, May 14th, 2014. I'm Andrea Sears. Tonight,
setting a precedent at this level will cement the existing consensus reflected by the fact that 65% of same-sex couples in North and South and Central America can legally marry.
a gay Mexican couple files suit in an international tribunal for the right to marry. An anonymous couple this week filed a lawsuit in the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to win the right to be married in Mexico. They had attempted to register their marriage in their home state, but their application was rejected. For one of the two, marriage could literally be the difference between life and death. Hunter Carter, a commercial litigator and prominent human rights lawyer in the New York office of Arent Fox, is representing the couple pro bono. Carter says same-sex marriage is legal in Mexico City, where it was passed by the city council. That law was challenged in the court, but the Mexican Supreme Court upheld it, and that same court later ruled that all Mexican states must recognize same-sex marriages legally performed in Mexico City.
So if you're Mexican and you have the resources to go to Mexico City and qualify to get legally married there, your Mexican marriage is good all throughout the country. But if you're not, like our couple, if you're from a state far away, what happens is you can't get married in your state. So you're out of luck. If you try to get married, you'll get rejected. You can go to court, as many couples from the state of Oaxaca have done down in the southern part of Mexico. And each individual case eventually, in say 2 years, may get as far as the Supreme Court at the highest level of the country. But that means that every same-sex couple who wants to get married outside of Mexico City has to spend 2 years in court and may or may not win. And if they win, it doesn't set a precedent for any other couples. And even if they win, the registration authorities might refuse to comply. So they've got to start a second case that might last another 2 years. So think about it. Your happy day is coming. You want to get married. Maybe you need to get married, as our couple does. And you have to face between 2 and 4 years of going to court just because of your sexual orientation.
As you mentioned, your couple has a specific reason for needing to get married. One of the members of this couple is HIV positive. So what kind of benefits are being withheld under Mexican law that this couple would be entitled to if their marriage were to be allowed and recognized in their home state?
Well, as it turns out, one of the couple is an employee of a Mexican federal government agency, and that gives him and his legal spouse medical benefits, which in the case of someone with HIV includes full access to the so-called cocktail of antiretroviral drugs and gives it to them at a very affordable access or free. Now, if you don't have something sensational like that benefit, then you're left with what is basically Medicaid, which is a poverty health program in Mexico, and it doesn't pay for those drugs. So it's as simple as being on the therapy or not.
What are the international standards under the Inter-American Court of Human Rights?
Well, first of all, it might help to know what the Inter-American Court on Human Rights is. It was created by a convention pursuant to the Organization of American States. The Organization of American States has an agency called the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And the commission investigates cases of human rights violations and brings appropriate cases before the Inter-American Court on Human Rights. And only countries that are members of the OAS and members of the court convention can be sued in this capacity. And what's important to know about the court is that in 2011, it ruled in favor of a Chilean judge, a woman who was a lesbian, whose children were taken away from her after her divorce from her husband simply because of her sexual orientation. And the Inter-American Court set an international standard that says that LGBT people can't have their parental rights denied on the basis of sexual orientation. So we feel this establishes a clear precedent that runs against every argument against same-sex marriage, which especially in Latin America, not only Chile and Mexico, Colombia, where I argued to the Senate, you hear over and over again this argument that LGBT people can't be parents, shouldn't have parental rights, and therefore shouldn't be able to marry. So we think that we will be setting a precedent in these cases for marriage equality, but that we have a strong legal case based upon the precedent involving the Chilean judge.
You've said that the Americas are in the vanguard of marriage equality rights worldwide. How many countries have universal same-sex marriage, and what is the status in the rest of the hemisphere? How is the quest for equality going?
The quest for equality is going very well, and it's going very rapidly. So we have several countries already with significant populations that have universal marriage equality. Canada was the first, Argentina, the small country of Uruguay, the huge country of Brazil. But then you also have, for example, the situation with Mexico, which is not unlike the situation with the United States, where you can legally get married somewhere if you're a same-sex couple, and your marriage has national effects, or for the most part in the United States, it has national effects because of the federal ruling striking down DOMA. So the way we calculate it, something like 50% of the population in the Americas lives where same-sex couples can legally marry. Another 15% lives where a same-sex couple, if legally married elsewhere, can have their marriage registered and recognized, which is to say 65% of the same-sex couples in the hemisphere already live where legal marriage for same-sex couples is possible. That's really amazing, and it is vastly better than Europe, for example, or certainly Africa and Asia.
Your firm also represented 3 Chilean couples who filed a complaint over their denial of marriage rights in Chile. How did that case go? What was the outcome there?
Well, that was the first case of its kind to be filed at the Inter-American Human Rights Court level. And we have 3 couples there, 2 of whom were legally married elsewhere, one in Canada, one in Argentina. All 3 were eventually rejected. Their appeals were turned down by the highest courts, as well as the Constitutional Court of Chile. And those cases are still pending in the Inter-American system. The Inter-American system is not known for moving swiftly. We're prepared to be in there for years. But if you look at the bigger picture, a lot has changed because their case brought a lot of press attention. I've spent a lot of time on Chilean television or in newspapers talking about the marriage case, as has our client, which is a gay and lesbian movement organization called Móvil in Chile, and a related organization called Fundación Iguales, also working in the area. Todo Mejora, the It Gets Better Foundation. You know, when we filed our case only 2 years ago, national polls suggested that maybe 24% of the population was in favor of marriage equality. And President Michelle Bachelet was recently elected president. You know, she had previously served as president. She was just recently elected again. When she was elected, 75% of the votes that were cast for all the presidential candidates were cast for candidates that expressly support marriage equality. Polls show that more than half the population supports full marriage equality. There's been a radical shift in Chile. They see that Spain has it, Portugal has it, France and England and much of the United States, Canada, Argentina. They're surrounded by marriage equality. And Chileans, I don't think, are going to have to wait for me to win a case at the Inter-American Court. I think they're going to adopt marriage equality. And I think that they'll do it fairly soon, next year or 2 years, if the political leaders there keep their promises.
If the suit is successful in the Inter-American Court, how does this change things? Can this actually affect change in Mexico or Chile?
Neither country has ever refused to obey an Inter-American Court order. And they've been faced with tough cases involving human rights violations. Each of the central governments of Chile and Mexico have the obligation under their treaties to enforce the court's orders, including taking actions to cause the local states to come into compliance with the convention. So from the technical perspective that you're asking, we're very confident that if and when we win, and we will win, the states will comply. But there's an extra important purpose to these cases that you should not overlook, which is that the Inter-American system on human rights is highly respected respected by the European, the UN, and the other human rights systems on the planet tremendously. And we feel that setting a precedent at this level will cement the existing consensus reflected by the fact that, as I said, 65% of same-sex couples in North and South and Central America can legally marry.
Hunter Carter is a human rights attorney in the New York office of Arent Fox. This has been Left Voices for Wednesday, May 14th, 2014. You can help support this experiment in independent journalism by visiting our website at www.leftvoices.net and following the Ways to Support Left Voices link at the top of the page. Join us again next time for more news and information from a progressive perspective. I'm Andrea Sears for leftvoices.net.